Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Innovation Café. Today we have a really interesting talk, which for me is especially exciting. My name is Zoe. This is my first time moderating the Innovation Café, so that's one of the reasons why it's so exciting. The other reason is because, as you see, the title is From Niche Experiments to Scalability and Systemic Change, and I myself am working on some niche experiments with fish leather, so I'm very curious to find out from our lovely speakers here, Jonathan and Meggy, how we can scale these niche experiments into a bigger, wider global movement. So first I will introduce the speakers. This is Meggy. Would you like to say something about what you do?
My name is Meggy Smulders. Thank you for the tip. My name is Meggy Smulders. I work for Gielissen now for 2 years. I have worked in the social domain before on a circular furniture loop, and now I do it like in a bigger area with bigger clients, more square meters, and I especially are busy with make interiors more sustainable, even regenerative. So that's what I do.
And Jonathan, would you like to say something about yourself?
So really nice to see so many people. Even the topic is a difficult one, I would say. But yeah, so my name is Jonathan Radetz. My studio is based in Frankfurt in Germany. We are like a design studio, a team of 5 people. And I think the most fun part is that a lot of projects we do, they create a social impact. So when we began, it was a lot about creating nice objects for nice companies, or at least I tried to be honest. I mean, most of the time we created nice objects and then sometimes found fantastic companies who tried to sell those pieces. And it changed a little bit. Of course, the society changed. A lot of topics came up, like everyone knows the word of sustainable. Now we talk about circular economy. So we started to create our own projects. So we, instead of working for companies, we also worked with companies and also did a lot of research. And I think it's really exciting that our praxis changed like that. And then, yeah, I'm happy to be here to talk about this topic.
And you also told me that you worked in collaboration with a research institute to create these objects, these pieces of furniture you can see behind. And also behind this television here, there's some pieces of furniture which are made from flax and aluminium tube.
Actually steel tubes. I think, it's a German research institute and it's our 3rd project. So it came up from a really little one to a medium-sized one to like a project what was now funded with €250 million to research on a circular economy. And I think that's fantastic if there is fundings to do things, but at the same time, we also need a project what grows from a normal praxis into a system where people actually can buy the product in the end. Yeah.
And so let's get straight into some big questions then. Where should the design process come from? When you're working with an institution for research that takes a lot of time and resources, how do we does this change come from the consumer, or is it coming from regulation, or is it coming from the time restraint, for example?
I mean, I think it's difficult to reply to the question from a general design perspective. But I think from my theory, design is not to create beautiful products with the only cause. So what does it mean? Of course, design products are beautiful, or creative work in general is something really fantastic human being achieved. And I'm happy to be part of it. So it doesn't mean I need to create objects just for that reason. So when I look into a research project, for example, it usually starts maybe with a material, but rather with a process. And I think in the end, processing material is what can lead to innovation. And I think that's what we try to gain with research projects. So I think it's to find the right processes and then fitting materials. And in the best case, it creates an impact because it's more sustainable or more resourceful or more effectful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit what you said earlier when we talked about how the process is a way that you and your process creates innovation, because maybe not starting with the material, but starting with the potential of what you can do with the material, creating a system, and then eventually coming towards more of a object or 3D form. So, yeah, it's a very nice approach.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you earlier mentioned also that you start with the end-of-life process, right? So you are not always, but especially for the aluminium you talked before, you start end-of-life.
I mean, there was this one project, I think it came up, and that's also where the mixture came from. So we did a really beautiful object out of aluminium. Or aluminium, it's in English, I think, yeah.
Aluminium.
Aluminium, yeah, that's what it is. And in the end, I asked myself, is it okay to work with such like a material where you need so much energy, so much carbon to recycle? So, and I think in this case it was, because the object I created, it's the project called Smulders, and it's a very pure, unique object, a porous aluminium what turns into a solid top. So it's a very expensive side table. But in the same time, you can really see how the material is processed. So the fantastic part of it, it's that the heat of the aluminium is much less than of salt. And that's how we create the structure. So it's really raw. We really don't have to add something to create a beautiful surface. And at the same time, I understood for this kind of product, we can use recycled aluminium, because I didn't know that there are 400 different types of the material, and that if you want to use a very special kind of product, you can't just use recycled material. I think I think there was also a really great exhibition of a company who does amazing stuff with recycled aluminium, and very regional. So I think, of course, there's a lot of things you can do, but if you look at the waste chain and what comes, sometimes you need to create special objects that society can reflect about the recycling systems. Yeah. So, and that's also where I sometimes look and to find my answers to the not asked questions.
And Meggy, you said you came from a family of chemists. How has that shaped your career, do you think?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have the gene of to become a chemistry, but I'm very interested in materials and combining them, and also in a health perspective, because I think, if you look at in an interior, more than 100 materials are used. The half of them contains fossil materials. So in my belief, when there is nothing growing on the material or in the future, then it's also not good for our health. And the industry of chemistry is also very much polluting our environment, but also making us healthy. So you have to balance in between. And I think that is where my passion for materials is coming from. Yeah.
Thank you. And so with your company that you work for, what kind of clients do you have?
Yeah, we work mainly for big corporate companies like Nike or Hilton Hotels. Nationale Nederlanden is one of my favorite projects because they challenge us to create more sustainable environments, and they also build a story with us. I believe that our clients, you asked Jonathan before, I think for Gilles, but also for me, the process starts with the ask of the client. So they say, we are your future suppliers. So we use all of the material. It's more the technical side of the circular economy. So we use all of their material to make a new furniture out of it. Yeah.
And so when the client asks for a specific kind of material, is that being pushed by regulations with what kind of chemicals are allowed to be used in material?
Yeah, it's very much from the certificates, such as WELL or BREEAM, and also the Dutch government also start new regulation for formaldehyde. In Germany, it is already E0.5, but in the Netherlands, it's E1. So that causes a big problem for our harvesting hall. Yeah, so it's like different kind of ways.
Okay. I'm wondering if anyone in the audience has any questions for either speaker.
Can you explain the regulations that you just explained?
For the formaldehyde?
Yes.
Yeah? Can I do it in Dutch? So, yes? Yeah? Ja, de Nederlandse wet en regelgeving gaat in augustus. Gaat het veranderen van de E1. En dat is een normering om formaldehyde van de E1 naar de E05. Om formaldehyde te reduceren. En dat is voor producenten, dus onze leveranciers, een van de grootste uitdagingen. Maar ook als je dus hergebruik wilt toepassen in je interieur, dan is dat ook dan is het ook een uitdaging. En uit mijn hoofd gaat hij van 5 milligram per vierkante meter naar iets van 0,5 per vierkante meter. Dus ja, veel strenger. Ja, en formaldehyde? Oké, ja.
Or
Okay.
a short version in
Yeah,
English.
for a short version. Formaldehyde, it's a gas, and it causes cancer. The Dutch regulation it goes for the E1 to the E05, and it means that it's 5 milligrams per square meter to 0.5 kilograms per square meter, so it's a lot harder to achieve. It's mostly a problem for wood companies who produces particle board, but also if you want to reuse old particle board is also a problem. So.
Anybody else have a question?
Okay, maybe a bit more critical. Where do you see the division or the cut from actually being sustainable when you work for like the big companies, like for example Nike? Because even if you, for example, use waste materials or these kind of regulation certificates or whatever, is it then really like sustainable, or is it still like sustainable but still in the economy thing?
For big clients, it's still in the economy thing. But yeah, even if you make a business model, you can, how do you say, you can do the mathematics and you can make it look sustainable. For example, we made tabletops from old t-shirts for Nike. Yeah, and yeah, you can ask if that is sustainable or not, because you downgrade the product. For Nationale Nederlanden, for example, they have like a very high ambitions, but the ambitions they when they, for example, you want to use plywood. And for the well, it can't be used because it's an unhealthy product. So even the ambitious can conquer. Yeah, they conquer together. So that is why it's really difficult to make an interior very sustainable. But we talked earlier, and I think the best solution. I do not think sustainability is a one-size-fits-all solution. I think the diversity of the different solutions make an interior more or less sustainable.
And I think, like if we work for a bigger company, for me it's always the question, are there green wishing or green washing? So because I don't want to be part of a green washing campaign, but I think I can be part of a green wishing campaign. Like I'm, what does it mean? It means that there is the need to talk about sustainable solutions, and this can change society. I mean, it might not change Nike in the next 5 years, but maybe in the next 20 years, it has an impact. Because it's also how we educate our children or even our parents or grandparents or partners. And I think it's good that there are a lot of projects also financed by big companies. Yeah. But of course, there need to be green wishing campaigns, because that's sure. We need great and nice pictures on how we can change the world, and then of course we need to buy less stuff. That's really what we have to do. Also, I mean, and if you do a bit of both, it can have a real impact.
Yeah, it's kind of a learning loop, because we're learning more like load. I don't know the English word for load, and also. But also asbest. It's very polluting material, and I think even if you use PET felt, I think in about 10 years PET felt is the same material as asbest. So
I don't know if this is going to happen.
Because I think rules change. The rules of the game change. So it's very hard to do.
Yeah, thank you. For the talks. I had two questions. So my major was and is in architecture. I studied my master's in TUE, and TUE is famous for their circularity, sustainability approach. But in architecture, it's a bit kind of like a fashion type of niche sustainability, or a bit small scale. They say, okay, like we say timber is the most sustainable right now. But do you see a more sustainable material or building approach in like the building niche or field?
Well, I think for myself it means don't tear apart old concrete buildings and invest in existing structures and build not for 40 years, build for 100 years. And every material you can use what takes less impact on the industry, and of course use now as less as possible concrete. Of course, we all know what the carbon footprint of this material is, and I don't think we should mix it with carbon fibers, if you ask myself. Even it makes less concrete. So what I see is every solution what thinks about what happens when we tear down the building is a good solution. So even maybe like asbest was an amazing material when it was invented, and I think the biggest problem was that when they figured out that people die of using it, nobody did anything about it. I mean, and of course there might come similar materials, and we should learn from those practices that we don't continue using those, but at the same time we need to still develop new materials and solutions. But I think the biggest impact in architecture is that a new built building can't be so much cheaper than to restore an old one. I mean, that's really, I don't know, like how we can change that. But in the end, it's always cheaper to tear down and build it new. But somehow we need to find a solution for that.
So you go first?
Oh, yeah. I have an answer to your question as well. I think you have to, of what you can do is to design it so you can put it out. And to design it in a mono-material way in the fixed furniture. I have an example. You can use flax to make a particle board, but flax is also used in linen. Flax is also, linseed oil is also made from flax. So, what it can do, and also marmalade is also from linseed oil. And when you put it together, you can make a new material out of it. So you create a constant loop. And I think in architecture, you can do it as well.
You see it as a structure as well, like we built the whole building. Because right now it's a bit small scale. We see in furniture, design, a bit like we're a bit cautious on how we can implement it more. But is the reason because we can't develop more bigger scale because of the health issue, or the structure and the building issue? Is it, which one side is it?
Yeah, I find it a very difficult question.
I think it's. I don't think it's. It's not a health issue. It's a health opportunity, I would say, usually. So if you use, natural materials, they're like if you look at painting, for example. Now, I don't know this, like in English, dispersions, like the color, the wall painting you use, it's plastic. So we put plastic on our walls. Like nobody likes plastic. We all know plastic is bad, but I don't know how many people know that the wall color is plastic. So, and of course, I don't know. I also use plastic color, but of course there are a lot of materials we used 100 years before. They're sometimes doing a much better job, and then we have to think about how to create new, innovative materials, what actually can create a different impact. So, and I think the structure, you mean by it's more like a question of investment. I think it's usually a money string, because if you need in architecture even to reuse materials is super difficult because you need certificates. Even the roof, the steel roof, had a certificate. If you unbuild it, you still need a new one somehow. And that adds costs, because you have to collect the material, you have to put it there, and then you have to get a new static for a material what already had a static. So here, if you look at the structure part of an architecture, or even a furniture or car or whatever, I think we can't do it with the same regulation of our old system. So we might have to change that. But I think it's usually, I always try, like if I work with students, for example, I always try to challenge our topics without changing the political rules, but they need to still change. But I'm a designer. I'm not a politic person. Even I like to talk and challenge them. But in architecture, we need a big change of regulations to create more sustainable products. Yeah.
Triggered by your question about concrete for buildings, here in Eindhoven you had the first building from wood at Stijp S, the matchbox. Also next to the railway station there will be a bigger one, the Dutch mountains, a very high one.
The biggest one in Europe, right?
And also Trudeau or the woningbouwverenigingen will use more and more wood to build houses also from that. To really have something like 20% of the new build in wood. So I would like to hear your view on both, from both of that.
I heard that there is enough wood to build more houses in wood. So that's what experts say. That's a little bit the question, right? If everyone builds with wood, will all forests be gone? So, but I think if you look how much wood still goes into creating resources to create power, there's a lot. But I'm not an expert of that. But I trust experts that they say we have the opportunity to build much more wood houses. Right now, I live in a wood house, it doesn't look like a wood house. So, and I don't feel that there's a problem with fire or anything. I mean, it's a house, and the quality to live in is great. So, and I think wood is one of the amazing materials we have. Wood has a really cool, sustainable footprint, and at the same time, I don't think that we can just make things out of it and then burn them. So we have to find a lot of solutions. What we do with the reconstructed houses, reconstructed furniture, before putting them back into carbon. Yeah.
And I will say for the CO2 emissions, the greenhouse gas emission, I will say yes. If you make your whole interior or your walls from plywood or particle board, I would say no, because it's very unhealthy. Yeah.
Hi, I'm also a designer working with recycled materials, and I was wondering how your sourcing of the material from a different waste streams, and from the end of life cycle, you mentioned that's the starting point for your design process. How does that impact, through the designs that you make, the end of life of the products that you're making with it? So what is the cycle that you're creating with the waste that you're using?
I think what we did, we were working on a method, for example, because I think a monomaterial is always great, yeah. But if you look into recycled, it's not always easy to find. And so for example, I imagined that there is maybe similar to the idea of only using flags. We could also create material streams in mixed opportunities. So it doesn't mean we have to create a lot of products exactly like this, but instead of only thinking in a monomaterial, you could also think, for example, what we did is we used polypropylene and flags, and we created a material called plugs. So we imagined everything is made out of plugs. What is a mixture of polypropylene, so a highly easily recycling plastic, nobody likes, with super recro, new old fiber flags. And then you create properties through the flags material. And so in the design perspective, the fun part was, because usually if you go and it's like, you can recycle it, what does that mean? It means that they can shred it into thousands of pieces, and then it's on the market, and maybe someone has an idea what to do with it. So usually recycling only means that they can make a lot of small particulate out of it, and it might be supplied into a plastic or a new board or whatever. So instead of going directly to the very small shred, we looked into different material stages, I would say. So let's say if you build a chair and you have an armrest, maybe from the shell you can create new armrests, like in a production circle. So, and if you start thinking like this, that of course the design needs to change, although maybe the proportion of the shell needs to change, or even the seat. Maybe the seat has to be double size of the armrest then. Yeah, but if you go on the sourcing side, I think what we need is a much better network on exactly the different material stages we have, because right now there's a lot of collecting materials, and I think that's a little bit what I have is I talk to a lot of the recyclers, and then you can see where, and usually they have also material, and then you have to find the process to create the design. Yeah.
And our resources come for the recycling process. They come from our clients, and also from the government. But what we do is we go from downstream, this client. We look if we can reuse the cabinet. If we can't reuse the cabinet, we make boards of it. If we can use the boards, they go back to our producers and they make new particle board out of it. So we look in our supply chain and we go up and down, up and down. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's what it is important, that if you look at the supply chain, it's different layers. That's also how we did the graphic. I mean, so you have the product layer, and then you have the very upcycled product. That's what we call recycled. So, but what she described was like there are all the different layers, and you can build a new board out of this, but you can also reuse the board. And I think it just takes a lot of time. But if you put all our sources together, it might be easier. That's what I believe in, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
So I have a comment. I usually make comments as opposed to questions, but it has some questions embedded in it. You were talking about wood earlier, and I really believe my father was in the wood products industry, so I always look at, wood is kind of seen as in the past negatively because we're cutting down forests, etc. But I was in Wageningen at a investment conference, and there's a new company that's let's see, what's the word in English? Growing wood from stem cells, and it sounds like a lot of people think, oh, that's crazy. Can't we just cut our grow our own trees? But actually, it's there's a lot of logistics involved in wood, and moving wood to the places where the people are is a big deal. So it can really save a lot in a lot of different aspects, and get really beautiful woods, like really beautiful colors, and very rare woods can be actually made and used on a very large scale. So it's a good future, I think.
Yeah, really cool. I'm very much a fan of Gavin Monroe, who grows furniture instead of what we do in the capitalistic way. We grow an oak tree, and it's full grown at 80 years old. We cut it down and we make planks out of it to make furniture. So Gavin Monroe grows furniture. Even Neary Oxman grows with egg whites, grows furniture out of it. So, yeah, really cool. Yeah.
Hi, I'm an architect. So I'm an architect. So I'm really wondering about the regulation. How do you do with them? Because normally, if I want to design anything in my mind, theoretically, I can do everything, but practically, it's not possible because regulations are really, I am the slave of the regulations. So how do you do them? Even if you are going to find or invent new material, how Germany, let's say you are from Frankfurt, how do they allow you to use it? Or how is going? Like, can we use your materials in our concepts? I would like to ask you that one.
I think in general we probably have similar or maybe even tougher regulations on the materials, especially the fire protection. It's really big in Germany, and everything what is with electric. But I think there's well-curated sustainable materials available. I'm not sure how affordable they are sometimes, but there are also affordable sustainable furniture available, and I think there was plenty of exhibitions where there is already stuff available, and it just takes time. I mean, architecture takes time, and also the materials take time, and I think the best is to ask, unfortunately. For the new materials, I think we will find solutions that the demand also will fulfill that the research process comes from prototype to certificate, and then it's easy to use, of course. But for the reuse, I also see a little bit of a struggle, because if we do certification 2 times on the same material, this will add costs, and I mean, that's already one of the problems of our time, that building houses is getting more and more expensive. So all those discussions lead to nothing if people can't afford their house or flat anymore, and that's what actually happened in Frankfurt. If we build a house in Frankfurt, a new house, the rental cost is already over 20 to 30 euros per square meters, if without taking any margin. So nobody thinks about reusing or recycled materials then. So often, like a regulation discussion also is like a bigger discussion with society, because if you see what impacts the material cost in the last 6 years, it was not those discussions. Usually, I think there are a lot of wars involved on what gives us right now the biggest challenge in changing the world again, like the wood crisis now, the fossil crisis. Also, it's also a challenge, of course, but so I don't know. I think who has to pay for it is then the question, right? But I think it helps if every single architect continues asking questions on how to use it, or even, I don't know, I think you have a similar structure with asking people if you can build it like this or not. So don't stop asking, and year by year we have more and better materials.
Yeah, and I think companies such as Gillissen, for example, in tech companies, it's more they get an amount of money they will do to they will invest in impact companies and impact businesses, and designers, material designers, they do research and they have to make the money by themselves. But I think companies as Gillissen, they have to make a durfkapitaal. I don't know the English word, but they...
Adventure capital. Yeah.
Adventure capital, yeah. They to invest in material designers to create more value for society.
Yeah, you mentioned that asbestos was once considered the fantastic material that solves everything, maybe even considered sustainable. And yes, we have learned that we must not use fibers, but I wonder, how do you make sure that you don't make mistakes? And you said you start from the end of life, which is an unusual approach. Usually system engineers start from operation phase. So when you think about the end of life, do you only think about how you can continue your narrative, like you recycle and do it again? Or do you also have on mind how you can undo mistakes you make?
I think I will do mistakes, yeah, and I'm sorry for that. But I think with what I mean asbestos, I think it was really bad because we didn't. I think the reaction were far too late, and of course I think I don't know if like there were enough tests if we could have figured out it before, but I think. I think it's not really. It's not the end of life perspective. I would describe rather than if someone says you can recycle it. I look into what does that mean. So like, can you really recycle it? And then I try to recycle it and see what it makes with the design approach. And then in the end, of course you need like we work with experts, and we have also trust experts and. Try to do our best, I would say, because I also feel a little bit talking about sustainability and design. It's always like, you do that, but that's bad. And then, you do that. Oh, no, that's also bad. We can't do that. So that's what I mentioned before. We also have to create those nice, great pictures. Everyone wants to look and change, and not from the greenwashing perspective. Maybe a greenwashing perspective, and sometimes we also create real impact with it through design. So I would say there are going to be a lot of mistakes, and hopefully we learn fast enough from them. But I would say to just go back, like if we just move 100 years ago, there was quite a circular economy already implemented by nature, I would say, and I don't want to go back. So that's why I'm so curious to find solutions.
Yeah, we at Gillissen we work with a multidisciplinary team who looks at the challenge from multiple perspectives, and we calculate them with third parties, LBP Site and Alba Concepts, who use data sets from milieuprestatiegebouwen to calculate and to really look and challenge us to do it better. So that is how we look at the.
But is it from the carbon footprint side or from
No,
like
it's
a multiple perspective?
Yeah, it's a multiple perspective, because the life cycle assessment has multiple subjects in it. So it's like the circularity index. It is about the end of life scenario. It's about environmental cost, and it's about the CO2 emissions.
It's also, as we said earlier, a little bit like we hope that the problem isn't as big as the asbestos problem, because it's not that everybody in the world is using the same material and everybody suffers the same consequences, but maybe the experiments are a little bit smaller, and therefore when a mistake happens, it's not happening to everybody and killing millions of people, but more like a smaller group at once, let's say. Or at least there's time to react to it.
Hi, can
I think there's another question there, but
here, I got the mic.
Yeah.
So I need to add one more word to the menu, I would say.
Okay.
We all know about forever chemicals, right? But what I don't think it's very known is that the semicon industry, besides plastics and textiles, it's one of the biggest pollutants in forever chemicals. So one of the most toxic chemicals actually produced by the semicon industry. And I'm not seeing a lot of, let's say, discussions about that particular pollutant. And it's not a question, it's more like a comment. Are you seeing more discussions about that specific topic? Or
You have to help me. What means semiconducting?
Semiconducting. So when they package chips, they use a lot of fluorocarbons,
Okay.
or very toxic variants, and the projections are that 5 to 25% of them end up in the environment. And these are forever chemicals. We cannot clean them, we cannot fight them, they stay toxic forever. So, and they're one of the biggest, actually, pollutants, beside plastics and textiles.
You sound like an expert on the topic.
Just have a good article about that.
Well, I also didn't know so much about it, so I think education, that's probably like always the biggest chance we have. So I think we need to talk after this talk, and then I try to find a solution. Yeah.
Hi, I have a question about, I think, systemic in a designing process, about the tools you are using. I think there's a strong correlation between modernism on concrete, on CAD, computer-assisted design, that there is this we need material that can be shaped in any shape to really use computer. So I wonder if when you are using end-of-life products, are you going full analog, or are you really trying to rethink about your connection to digital tool?
I think we still have a very minimalistic approach in most of the, I mean, the question is like, for example, if we use AI-generated objects and things like that, and I think as more complicated the shape is, as more complicated the processing is. So even the material is flexible, the tools are not, I would say. For example, though, a casting tool is still super expensive. Like if it's more dimensional, for example. So in the end, we are still limited by the processes. So that's also why I'm so curious about the process. But in the limit, like in this, yeah, and also like for example, 3D printing sort of is great, but I don't see the biggest solution for society in it. Only, and everyone works on it, if we have endless energy. So if we have the sun supplies us with energy, I also see myself printing wood furniture at home, and I don't know if I just re-extract them and then reprint them if I want to refurnish it. But like to answer to your question, I still are very close to the material and process. And in our industry we work for, in the furniture field, the budget for cars are very low. So even like the high scale, like comparing to every other industry, if you see like how much cars cost you have in a car or in a boat, so that really limits the shape, and that's why we don't go super crazy about the shape, like our studio. I think maybe other studios doing it differently. What about you?
For Gilles, we have like a more like a traditional workshop, but we are looking for a 3D printer as well. And now we're working on a project together with Heijmans, we saw their innovation for the 3D printing with mycelium. It's very cool. It is standing here in the Kazerne. I even saw it here, and I contacted Ralph Odibeur, the innovation manager from Heijmans, and now we are looking if we can use their learnings into our own workshop. But we are a particle board factory, so it's very much ahead. But we talk about using AI, for example, in our engineering phase, and even maybe in the far future we can make a workshop with drones. Yeah.
Thank you. I am maybe going back to one of the first questions, which is about greenwashing versus greenwishing and consumer trends. And I wonder, have you seen any benefit now working with larger companies like Nike, like maybe IKEA, that have really an influence or a large marketing budget and team to respond to, but also kind of frame market trends and consumer demand? Do you see that working with those organizations is also helping you shift consumer demand to be more sustainable, more circular, and looking down upon or bringing education to like education pathways through consumerism for materials that are not as good? Or is it right now more in the green wishing side, just commercial benefit?
I think it's a different question, because Gilles makes the interior for the headquarters of Nike and Nationale Nederlanden. So we don't influence their product users, but we influence the people who work at their offices. For example, we can make great impact with social sustainability, because they make budget for us to invest in social workshops, to learn people who experience a distance from the labor market. We can invest to uitbesteden van outsourcing for make fix furniture. So it's a different question. We don't influence the consumers. No. But I think
I'm not I guess the companies, even the bigger companies we work for, are not as big as the companies you work for. But but in the research project, we came also in touch with one of the biggest clothing companies, and in the end, I always find it interesting how complex it is then to talk about to place there a new material, because I think that's good that they're very watched. And that's the nice thing about it. They really have to think about, okay, what are we going to do, though nobody is beating us a little bit. And I think that helps to push transformation processes, because I would say they have the problem that they have to do good things with their waste, and then they're asked people to do good things with their waste, and then there might be new materials created just out of this. For example, if you see at the Quadrat company, really, and that's that's of course that's a lot of textile waste and very high quality, complex product development turns into a very expensive product in the end. But there's a lot of production processes developed through that. Yeah. And
Quadrat also made the tabletops for Nike with their own waste.
yeah, I think it's easy because like there's so much waste in the end. But what I mean is that there is a process started because of this demand, and this is a little bit what I like. But in the end, we were asked to create a new material out of custom shirts. So the idea was that you can get a custom shirt from a very big clothing company, and if it's not fits, you just send it back and they throw it away, shred it, and we do something new out of it. And we said no, because that's totally greenwashing. Even the idea is interesting. Yeah. So we created a concept where we said, okay, maybe we can. What can we do instead of shredding it and making a new product? So maybe have reseller, like have shops where you can buy custom shirts, maybe fitting, or even instead of like create patch-up fabrics and make something out of it. So in the end, you can say maybe go in one direction, but I think what I really like about is that the demand of society pushes a little bit also the new material transformation through those companies. Yeah.
I'm very curious on how you can get an interior to be regenerative. And I'm also really curious on how the hell can we scale it up fast enough?
Yeah. Right now we can calculate the environmental cost. So it's a very negative way to look at the numbers. But then you have, on the other hand, you can be a breeding ground for future talent. So you can put social return on investment in your challenge, in your interior bestek. But in your blueprint, yeah, in your interior blueprint. So you can attach social return on investment. You can calculate the influence on biodiversity. You can work together with the supply chain to create more innovation, and then then you have like the numbers of your environmental cost, and then you have the numbers of the impact you make, and you can compare them, and if the numbers of the impact you make are higher than the cost, then you have a regenerative interior.
That was perfect. No, I think one of the biggest impacts, what will change a little bit the business around us, is the cross markets. I mean, there are more and more cross markets coming up, like the selling furniture twice or three times, or even renting it. I mean, they're not so good concept about renting it, and this also takes a big impact on the designers or maybe even architects, or because we need new contracts because. We will design less products because we work more and longer on the existing ones so that they're more circular or more sustainable or repairable or even ready to be sold 2 or 3 times for the same company. And I think that's something what is really interesting to see, because right now we are based on the sales. So if companies sell a lot, we get a lot of money, and if they sell nothing, we get nothing. Like our studio, not like sometimes we get a development fee, but if you look now on how the market changed and why we would create better products, there are not so many reasons for it. Only personal reasons, I would say. So for myself, it's good enough. But if we want to change the system, we have to talk about how to redo the system of values on how. Because, for example, USM Halle, I think they took the opportunity because they have a product what is 100 times cross-market possible because it's very strong materials, easy to redo. And I think, I don't know when they started, but 10 years ago they started, instead of that everyone sells them on eBay, you can buy it there. And a lot of companies picking this up. And I think that's it's really nice because that saves resources. But for the designers, it's more difficult then, yeah.
I think now it is time for Hans to make the summary, if you also agree.
Yes, we're just about out of time, so if you have any more questions, please save them for drinks after the bar. Thank you very much to our speakers, and I would like to ask Hans to give a little summary of what we heard today.
Thank you. I think today we have been facing one of the most interesting and difficult things. That is a change in the way people look at things. I mean, what I would say is don't think in terms of solutions. I think that's obvious because solutions will always tend to make the existing situation last longer. And we are facing an idea. And ideas have two sides. I mean, on the one side, they are something to go for. It's a target, a goal. On the other hand, they are ways in which we look at things. I mean, if you have certain ideas and you are facing a situation, perhaps I'll give a simple example. Until the Renaissance, we thought that the earth was flat. So the idea was the earth is flat. After the Renaissance, we suddenly realized that the earth was round. Now, we cannot look at the earth or see that it is round, except for a few guys who think differently. And that's, I think, the stage you are finding yourselves in industry and in design. The idea is still not accepted, it has not landed completely, and it slowly has to develop. And by, for instance, you said that in the big companies, the consumers you don't influence, but of course, every person in this company is a consumer. So what they see at work or in the big offices, they take home. What I like, by the way, is your growing furniture. In England, they grew the beams for ships hundreds of years ago. So you have big lanes where the oak trees grow round so that they didn't have to refit them. So the problem you are working around is the wishing you should always promote and make people aware that if they go for that, then slowly the ideas will come to life, because I read about it more and more. I mean, you're talking about circularity. The wheel was never invented. I mean, everything in life is in cycles. So the wheel slowly rolled into the mind and the ideas of people. And I think if you try to put it like that, and for instance, one thing which I think would help is to pay much attention when you start on a project to look at the consequences. I mean, we are not used to doing that, and Taleb wrote a book about that, about the Black Swan, which is a book which is completely about consequences. And the Amerindians, they looked at big decisions, they looked at the consequences for 7 generations. I think that's a hell of a lot, but it makes you aware that things might change in the long term. So don't go for the quick fix, the solutions. And I thank you very much for the presentations.
And as always, we have drinks at the bar, so if you want to continue a conversation with the speakers, feel free. We always have a dinner, so if you'd like to stay for dinner, you can come and let me know, and I will make sure there's a place for you at the table. And finally, we are also asking for donations for innovation cafes, so if you are able to, please scan the QR code and donate, and then we can keep doing events with drinks and meeting people. So, yeah, have a lovely rest of your evening.